There's a new Harry Potter game coming out and I really want to play it. It looks fun. It doesn't look groundbreaking, but even if it's average, it is essentially the Harry Potter game that millennials have dreamed about since 2006. My love of this franchise is so powerful that it overrides the fact that I belong to a demographic that will be hurt by the success of this video game. You can hear it in my voice, you can see it in my face. Yes, I am in fact a gamer. And even though pre-ordering objectively hurts the gaming community as a whole, my sheer love for Death Eater aesthetics surpasses the weight that my soul will bear for all the harm I'm gonna cause my fellow Americans this February. Oh, I'm also trans, which apparently plays a factor in all this as well. Yes, JK Rowling is a mean-spirited and dreadfully rude woman. Instead of realizing politics are boring just like the rest of us, she goes out of her way to push for legislation which hurts trans people like me. So would buying and playing this game make me transphobic? No. Don't click away from this video with the assumption otherwise. Buying and playing this game doesn't make anyone more transphobic than they already were. Look, I understand that just like Chick-fil-A, a little bit of every purchase goes to a bigot. I won't stand in the way of anyone else's activism, because I used to personally really care about this stuff. But to me, true equality is any trans girl being able to eat fast food's best chicken Sammy while getting sorted into the appropriate house cup without the lingering threat of genocide. I also get that it's hard to separate the art from the artist. Some people think that you can't separate the two. But isn't leftism about analyzing and critiquing systems? Not buying a thing isn't gonna solve capitalism. Okay, I also get how it's even harder to separate the art from the artist when Rowling straight up says that buying Harry Potter supports her anti-trans agenda. But here's the thing about that. She's allowed to be wrong there as she is about trans people in general. The saddest thing in my opinion is that she is an otherwise brilliant writer, but this topic gets her so biased that it annihilates her ability to perform basic media analysis. JK Rowling says that boycotting her products is like the book burnings, which makes sense because Nazis are her favorite kind of bad guy. Voldemort simply is Hitler as written by your average 14-year-old Tumblr user. Rowling is operating on very simple logic. She views the trans community as oppressive, but knows that outright saying that is unpopular. But it is popular to say that the Nazis are oppressive, so if she wants to keep her popularity while also pushing her agenda, she just says that the trans community does things that the Nazis were known to do, leaving the implication for the reader. See, I told you that she is a clever writer. In fairness, Rowling has experience with actual book burnings, but these came from a much different source. However, looking back on it, burning Harry Potter books because you believe they teach harmful witchcraft isn't actually that dumb in my opinion. What is dumb is actually believing that it taught real witchcraft. Because heck, if Satan actually existed and his minions were corrupting children with their harmful literature, then why wouldn't we burn every copy to dust? It's literally Satan. However, thankfully Satan isn't real, and all of the spectacle about burning Harry Potter is just a way for smaller churches to use a larger intellectual property for free advertising, even if they don't see it that way. They might successfully get the occasional book banned from some school districts, but it is mostly a ritual to show others in their community how religious they are. Compare this to the first Nazi book burnings, which were an organized attack on a specific university, purging and deleting thousands of unique works, scientific data and research to be lost to time, specifically cutting-edge science about queer people and gender theory. So where I'm sure that JK Rowling views the Nazis' book burnings as bad, I do wonder why she thinks that. Because obviously the Nazis didn't think it was bad. They had the sincere belief that transgender women were actually degenerate men. Like, I can't stress this enough. If a book is known to cause actual pedophilia, it should be burned as much as any book that is known to summon actual Satan. If the Nazis were right about trans people and their literature, they were absolutely right to burn those books. But the Nazis were as wrong about queers as fundamentalist churches are wrong about the wizarding world of Harry Potter. JK Rowling hates the statement, buying Harry Potter supports transphobia, because she doesn't believe trans people exist. I hate the statement, buying Harry Potter supports transphobia, because it's wrong. The idea that buying Hogwarts Legacy makes you transphobic has popped up a lot online recently. Along with Twitter, a popular platform for activism is the satirical gaming subreddit r/gaming-circle-jerk. It is meant to parody the worst parts of gaming culture like bigotry, as well as poking fun at general lighthearted gamer silliness. You know, a gaming circle jerk. This subreddit has overall good vibes and a strong following of queer folk, meaning that the primary point of the subreddit has swung back around to being less about satirizing bigots and more about being sincere activists. Funny enough, I was permabanned a couple years ago during this shift in culture. I made an ironic transphobic joke in a thread that was already jerking around, which, I thought was the point of the sub, and I was even using the commenting format, which indicated whether you were being serious or pretending to be a bigoted gamer bro. Either way, the community had gotten so sensitive that my joke was read as a completely serious comment, and I was downvoted to oblivion and banned for hating transgender people. Gotta love Reddit mods. Honey, if trans people hating ourselves was a bannable offense, then there wouldn't be any forums for trans people in the first place. So I can empathize with anyone who thinks that the online left is annoying. And if you figured out a new way to call a gay lefty a hypocrite, you've struck internet gold. This Twitter reply belongs to an internet personality called The Act Man. He is a gamer bro who makes legitimately entertaining content about Call of Duty and loot boxes and general gaming culture. I sincerely vibe with a lot of his videos.
God, I can't believe there used to be a time when you just popped a dope-ass game into your console and you could play it, no bullshit. No extensive manufactured grind for worthless cosmetics. No shady developers you gotta look out for.
Is this good for the player?
No 5-hour updates or seasons passes. No forced online connection, loot boxes, or any of that extra crap you have to worry about now. Just you and the game.
However, he also has a bad habit of going out of his way to say harmful opinions about transgender people, like how apparently we aren't experiencing discrimination. Alright, let's see if I can do a good The Act Man impression.
Why is pretending to be a woman when you got a dick and balls not treated as a mental illness? Why do people think this is okay?
It's treated as a mental illness in some respects, the only effective cure of which is a sex change.
Ain't a cure when the suicide rate is astronomically high.
I wonder why. Couldn't be the depression dysphoria often causes coupled with the societal stigma, could it? Nah.
The only other suicide rate as high as trans people is Jews living under Nazi Germany. Trans people do not live in that environment.
And, as I said elsewhere, you know nothing of dysphoria and what it can do to a person, especially when coupled with societal stigma.
Trans people do not live under the same pressure as the Jews did. That's what I'm saying.
A few years ago, in his rambling diatribe against SJWs, he straight up called Brianna Wu, a game developer and transgender woman, a man. For context, Brianna Wu is arbitrarily hated and considered a bad person according to a lot of the Act Man's audience.
Look, nobody approves of death threats, but if you're gonna publicly insult and demonize millions of gamers and the industry they love, you can't act shocked when you get threats like that.
To support the false narrative that she is a liar, he said that she is actually a guy.
There's also the famous story of the boy who cried wolf, and it particularly applies to the case of Brianna Wu.
Okay, I just wanted to get my thoughts out on this as I'm editing, because, looking back over this thing, it's so much worse than I fucking remember. Okay, I thought that it was just gonna be, simple misgendering, and there's that, but it's in addition to showing pictures of her before her transition. He dead names her explicitly. He compares her to Frank Fontaine, the okay. Yeah, I thought that he was referencing, the old comedian somehow, but of course it's, the villain in BioShock. So he says that she is the fucking antagonist of BioShock because she is trans. Oh my god. This video is still up, by the way, though I hope that the one good thing that came out of YouTube's strict censorship recently is that he's no longer making money off of this video. He should still fucking delete it off of the face of the earth. So, like, he believes trans women in general are actually men who lie about it. That's lame, dude. The only way this isn't straight up transphobia is if trans people don't actually exist in the first place. Since then, he has come around to accepting that we exist, but the current opinion is that we are too annoying with our online activism, which is pretty damn ironic, because the exact same thing can be said about him. Oh, loot boxes are so harmful to children. Gambling for children is wrong. I say, as the metal in my video game console used to play, the video game is mined by child slave labor. Now, I'm not going to make that argument because it's as much of a stretch as saying that Hogwarts Legacy is harmful to queer people. However, do you know what is harmful to queer people? There's a bill currently being proposed in multiple states which would make it illegal for theater companies to hire transgender performers. It may sound a little too extreme to be true, but unfortunately, it straight up defines drag performer as, and I quote, anyone who exhibits a gender identity that is different than the performer's gender assigned at birth using clothing, makeup, or other physical markers. So, you know, trans people, or any cisgender woman playing Peter Pan. Then it goes to say that any business with a drag performance is automatically a sexually oriented business. And finally, any sexually oriented business which serves minors will get a fine for child abuse. So you can say that the intent is to protect children, but even if a community theater limits their production of Rocky Horror Picture Show to just adults, and kids only attend classes and shows which are age appropriate for them, that doesn't matter. Hiring a trans person makes the theater company itself a sexually oriented business. So any interaction with a minor afterwards is considered child abuse according to the bill. I can't stress this enough. Some states would put your local Shakespeare in the Park company in the same category as strip clubs. So if you're trans, this legislation straight up sucks to see, let alone the myriad of bills proposed which would outlaw transgender kids from getting proper medical care. The right puberty sucks enough as it is. Do you know how it feels to go through the wrong one? So even in the free US of A, in some states, if you're growing up as a trans kid, you have to deal with it being illegal for you to be yourself. And now your hobbies are being outlawed too. Who's to say this pearl clutching wouldn't spread to video games? If the centuries-old tradition of live theater can't be trusted to be self-regulated, then why wouldn't the states step in and ban kids from playing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? Now, don't get me wrong, if there was in fact an epidemic of drag queens forcing children to shove money into their thongs, that would be bad. If books about queer people caused children to become mutilated, we should absolutely burn those books. But thankfully, none of these scary things actually exist. What unfortunately does exist is that a small group of powerful people are going out of their way to cause harm to queer folk when we just want to live peaceful and happy and relatively normal lives. And you don't have to be a lefty to recognize this. You just have to be not right-wing enough to recognize that the anti-trans agenda comes from the exact same ridiculous source as people who think video games cause school shootings. And unfortunately, shutting our brain off from critical thinking in one area has a bleeding effect that makes us dumber when it comes to related subjects. For instance, even though we all want to protect children from sexual abuse, it is ridiculous to equate the art of drag with sexuality. It is just a style of performance like noir or clown or kabuki or melodrama or the method itself. Earlier, I mentioned how Peter Pan is drag. Well, so is any young girl your local community theater has to cast as Little Timmy in A Christmas Carol. 'Cause, like, if you're a community theater and this royalty-free show is a part of your yearly bread and butter, you can't not do the Christmas Carol just because little boys are too busy playing sports to audition. Instead, you do the smart business decision of casting a young girl in drag as a young boy, and no one has a problem with it because it doesn't matter. Also, drag is a popular stylistic choice for YouTube personalities like the Act Man. Sure, I'm assuming the guy behind the glasses is a cisgender man. So yes, go ahead and cancel me for using contextual clues, I guess. I don't know this guy's real name, and I want to respect his privacy. But regardless of his personal identity, the man he is online is a gendered performance, but I don't think that there's anything remotely sexual about it. The overall triggered reaction to trans people simply existing goes to show how the Act Man and Joanne are actually the same person. They care enough about oppression to know that good people are opposed to it, but they also hold the oppressive belief that trans people don't really exist. Act Man and Rowling know that Nazis are universally accepted as bad, oppressive people, but they know nothing about the Nazis or are lying about them. So any way they talk about trans people and the Nazis in the same context inevitably recreates pro-genocide talking points, like how queer people apparently didn't exist in Nazi Germany. And if they did, they definitely wouldn't be oppressed. The Nazis weren't transphobic. They didn't hate trans people. They just believe the same things about gender that British people do today. And in fairness, that's also why I don't really care if someone buys Hogwarts Legacy. In this transphobic world, any real effort to combat transphobia is amazing. And in my personal opinion, not buying a video game is a form of activism that requires very little effort. Sure, when I buy this game, like $1 of mine might trickle up to Rowling, but in my heart of hearts as a trans girl who grew up with the fantasy of wanting to be a witch at Hogwarts, I'm gonna get so much gender euphoria from this thing that the experience is gonna add years to my lifespan. And all she got was $1 of mine, so I guess the joke's on her. Look, I know that there's no way that JK Rowling will ever watch this video, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there for anyone who wanted to hear the opinion of a trans girl who is happily pre-ordering the upcoming Harry Potter game. However, there is a slight chance that this vid may be seen by Mr. the Act Man, so if you're watching this, I want to start fresh. You won't say you're anti-trans rights, but you do think that pro-trans activism is silly given that you believe transgender people aren't attacked like the Jews were in Nazi Germany. Well, now we are at that point. Go ask your local rabbi what they think the definition of woke is. And sure, the Republicans aren't literally as bad as the Nazis at the end of World War II, but looking back over the last decade, anyone who predicted that they would get to this Nazi of a point already was originally called hysterical, but ultimately proven right. I'm not saying you have to go to rallies or canvass for the Democrats or even change the way you vote, but could you please stop feeding into the cringy culture war shit and talk about the things you actually know about? Like how Halo used to be good? Ah, there we go. That's better. Also, in the editing process, I did realize it would be 100% unfair for me to not mention that he donated money to the Trans Lifeline. Like, this is good. This is objectively good. It gives me the same kinds of warm, fuzzy feelings that I get when Jeff Bezos makes, like, a homeless shelter that helps 500 people. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That is good. But also looking at this and looking at the Act Man's entire career, I am a little curious as to whether he would have even donated this money if the discourse didn't happen in the first place. Either way, I sincerely hope that you have as much fun playing Hogwarts Legacy as I will, and for everyone else, thanks for watching.